Hey everyone, it's Brave here again. I just want to talk about forgiving ourselves for the things we've done or haven't done in regards to people we've loved, and whether they've passed away or whether we lost them through having to break up from a relationship that was toxic or abusive. But because we loved them, there were moments where we felt guilt and remorse, wondering if we could have changed the person, the abuser, made them more kinder to us if we had just reacted differently to their abuse. But at the end of the day, there's no excuse for their abuse. Even if they were abused, even if they have personality disorders, at the end of the day, sometimes you have no choice but to break your own heart and step away and refuse to be the victim of their abuse anymore. And it's painful because, we sometimes wish we could go back in time and save those, people from themselves. Even though we were the victim of them, they were cruel to us, they were mean to us, they abused us, they didn't appreciate us, they took us for granted, whether we were their, intimate partner or family or friend or whoever it was who you're very close to. And sometimes especially when they've passed away, that guilt, remorse and confusion, it can get worse because obviously there's no opportunity to talk to them anymore, even if there's been a long period of silence or no contact. You may have had hope that one day we're going to reconcile and everything will be fine and the slate will be wiped clean. And I find that was something that happened in my life, where there was, certain people who had mistreated me very badly, family members. And, when they passed away, I felt guilty but also angry, like, oh, now I don't have the opportunity to confront them and say, your abuse was wrong. Why did you treat me this way? But then at the same time, I also felt sad because, the relative who I loved, even though they abused me, is now gone. But even though I know for a fact that I will see them on the other side in the spirit world, but because we left things at a bad standstill, we weren't on good terms because of what they'd done. And it's correct for the victims to stand up for themselves, make the abuser acknowledge that they've done wrong, and not that an apology can take anything away 100%, but it would be nice to get an acknowledgement of the guilt or the bad actions they've done. But sometimes there's certain things an apology can't fix. But it's like, it's very hard because there's moments where your guilt and remorse isn't really necessary, but you can't help but feel it. So really, why should you feel remorse? They should feel remorse for treating you so badly. They should feel bad and want to reconcile. I mean, some people might say guilt, remorse, regret are all the same thing, or a few, two sides of the same coin. But we shouldn't get stuck in guilt mode, basically, is what I'm thinking. When I think about any time I felt guilty that I reacted aggressively back to my abusers, I've looked into that, and psychological, if you think about the psychology of a victim, some people will become very timid and scared, but some people will just suddenly explode and just roar back at the people who have been abusing them. You've been letting them get away with it for so many years because you love them, their family or whatever, and you felt like guilty if you hit them back, or that you would be seen as evil if you retaliated, but then it's like one day you just explode because you can't take it anymore, the verbal abuse, the violent abuse, whatever kind of abuse it was. And so when that happens, they call it reactive abuse, because you didn't plan to abuse them. This was just, whether it happens immediately after an episode of abuse that you have reactive abuse, you retaliate in kind, with the equal measure to, match what they've been putting towards you. You react with the same aggression, or it might be many, many years later you suddenly react abusively, but then you feel guilty because you're not a bad person and you're not an abuser. So that's a sad thing, that the victims will feel regret and remorse for reacting negatively to abuse, which is a negative thing. But because it's abuse coming from a loved one, or a husband, or a boyfriend, or a friend, or people who you consider significant and close to you, and then that's where, like I said, you could get stuck in guilt mode, because you keep thinking, maybe things could have been different, maybe if I didn't react so aggressively, or maybe if we had a chance to be in front of each other again, we'd both react differently to the same situation. But that's not always possible to go back into these situations with the same people and get a different result. Sometimes you keep trying and trying, and history repeats and repeats and repeats negatively, and then you feel stupid for trying to give chances to people who already showed you who they are, what they're capable of, what they're willing to keep doing to you for whatever reason, whether they're sadistic and cruel and they enjoy your pain, whether they've got personality disorders like narcissistic personality disorder, even if they're just like reacting from their own pain and hurt. I mean, they can't keep doing this. They have to get help, whether it's psychological help from a psychiatrist or a counsellor. They have to be willing to say, I recognise my behaviour is not acceptable. It's damaging to the people I love and care about. And if they are able to get their family or their partners, whoever they have, shown abuse to, and actually genuinely being sorry, hearing out the victim, even when they hear stuff they don't want to hear, even when they're told how bad their behaviour has been, they should be able to, if they're not willing to sit there and say, yes, you're right, I was wrong, I shouldn't have done that. It was, even if they, it's not an excuse, but say if they had substance abuse or alcohol abuse, they need to be able to sit in that, and talk about it, whether they feel ashamed, embarrassed, upset that, they weren't strong enough to get off the substance. I mean, you really just have to be willing. If you haven't got a personality disorder or a mental issue or a psychological issue holding you back, if it's really just you were lashing out because you were so badly treated and it messed you up, you have to be able to consider, if you understand what suffering is, why would you inflict that suffering on someone else, especially your kids, your relatives, your loved ones, your partner, wife, husband, girlfriend, boyfriend, whoever it is, friends, if your friends are your family, because you don't have a lot of family. You don't have to be blood to be considered family. Some people don't have a lot of blood relatives, or they're so badly treated by their blood relatives that their friends are their family, and that's fine. But at the end of the day, it's like you have to be able to treat each other better. It doesn't matter if you're just friends or family or partners. Like, the problem is when people are not willing to get help or change. They see you as the problem. When you complain about their abuse, you're the problem. And a lot of that stubbornness is usually coming from them having a more severe and narcissistic personality disorder, they're going to be trickier to, deal with, because there isn't a way to take that condition out of a person. So once the damage has been done, they've been abused as a child, or they've suffered severe trauma, even as a grown-up or a young adult. And once that damage is done, it's really, really hard to reverse. So most narcissists who get therapy will become self-aware and be able to perhaps think about, is this action going to cause pain and harm? It's more like making them think before they act on the compulsion. They're always going to have the compulsion to say something crazy, do something cruel, do something mean. But it's like the therapy, they'd have to do it continuously. It would have to be something they are willing to continuously work at. And that's what's really, really painful. If anyone has ever been with a narcissist as a husband or wife or girlfriend or boyfriend, friend, sister, mother, brother, whatever, you'll understand why I'm saying this, that they can't be cured. They can become self-aware and perhaps reduce their need to be cruel or need to be nasty, but it's very, very hard. And people do say, go no contact, don't talk to them again. But for some people, it might be impossible. It might be that your kid's father, is a narcissist, and you want your children to have a relationship with them, but you're also nervous because the father might be cruel to the kids to get to you and make the kids feel like crap to hurt you, because you'll see the pain in your kid's face and you will feel bad, and they know that. So it's very, very complicated when people have certain conditions. And like I said, it's when you have like involuntary guilt. And what I mean by that is that you're not making yourself feel guilty, but the guilt washes over you. You feel as if you are to blame because you couldn't save them. There's sometimes that feeling of, like, when people talk about survivor's guilt, for instance, and you were all on an airplane and sadly the rest of the people died, or your friend group or family group on the plane died, and you happened to survive, and then you feel survivor's guilt, even though you couldn't have possibly saved them. It wasn't your fault that the plane crashed. You don't know how to feel. You feel sort of just, without even trying, you feel guilty. Obviously, you're grieving. You've lost people. It's a shock. It's a terrible trauma. But it's like, there's certain things, like certain emotions that can just come over you and you can't even control them. And they don't even really belong to you. The guilt should not be there. But for some weird reason, this human brain will bring things up and force it in your face. And you have to try so hard to work through these things. This is why it's so important to be mentally strong and be able to analyse yourself, self-analyse yourself, look at your behaviours and ask yourself questions. Why am I reacting this way? What is it in my life or childhood or personality that is making me react this way, or allowing me to feel guilt that doesn't belong to me? You blame yourself for something that you couldn't have possibly have stopped. There's certain events that could happen in your life and you think, well, if only I'd stopped her going to the car that day, or if only I'd stopped her marrying that guy, or if only I'd stopped him, going on holiday with that person who ended up hurting them. There's so many things that are out of our control that we really have to have radical acceptance in certain situations, because when you just allow yourself to be drowned by all your emotions, you won't be able to cope. It will overwhelm you. So when you feel drowned in multiple negative emotions, you need to be able to decipher and sift through what it is that is triggering these emotions. There is a trigger, and you need to find what it is and decipher, how can I, change this trigger, stop this trigger. Because most people, when they feel guilty about something, it's usually because they cared about a person. You don't usually feel guilty when it's like incidents or situations where you don't have emotional connections to people. If someone on the street, threw a drink in your face and you threw one back, you wouldn't feel guilty about that. Because you don't know them and you got them back for being an arsehole or whatever. But say if like you were arguing with your husband and you threw a drink in his face and he threw a drink in your face, you would both, because you care about each other, even though you were angry, you'd feel embarrassed, you'd feel sad, you'd feel like I was out of line. If you really did have love for each other, when you calm down, you'd be like, I can't believe I disrespected, my partner that way, or I crossed the line, I embarrassed them, But yeah, so when it comes to those overwhelming feelings of, guilt, remorse, that wishful thinking of should've, woulda, coulda, as people say, I should have done this, I could have done this, I could have done more, why didn't I say more? I had a feeling this was going to happen. I knew that this person was evil. Why didn't I warn them? Maybe if I'd warned them, but the thing that you have to realize is, what if you had warned them and it still happened? You know what I mean? What if you had, given them every bit of evidence to say, this is going to end badly, please don't go ahead with this, whatever this or that is. There's certain things that are out of our control. If you think about destiny, when people talk about fate and destiny, if there is an event that is going to take place, no matter how traumatic, no matter how awful, no matter how much evil's involved, if these things are going to take place, there is nothing you could have ever done. And the blame is not with you. The guilt does not lie with you. Of course, you're going to regret the fact that your loved one or your friend or whoever it is, going to be hurt or has passed away because of some terrible event. Of course, you're going to feel that. There is no way anyone in their right mind would not feel extreme pain and grief and loss. That is totally normal, to react that way. But what you need to work through is forgiving yourself for thinking that you had to save them when it's a possibility you could never have saved them. If it didn't happen that time, it could have happened another time. If a terrible incident, you managed to save them from this one, another incident could have happened when you were away. I mean, it's so hard to be everywhere for everyone and save the whole world. It's like, I wish I could save the whole world. I wish I was Superwoman and I could fly around saving everyone. And, and mentally, like, as an empath, I feel so overwhelmed most of the time with, feeling the collective despair of the world, watching the news and seeing how much tragedy and evil is still going on, all the hate that keeps just flaring up, that you knew never went away. People always lie and say, yeah, we're not racist, or we're not a racist community, or we're not a racist country. And the second they find, something to spark off their hidden agenda, then suddenly we have race riots where there was no race thing there was nothing to do with race going on, but somehow now we have race riots, because they're using innocent victims' stories to fuel people, like give people false information, on Twitter, online, or whatever, and then everyone's, feeding into it instead of saying, hold on a minute, the family of the victims are not wanting this. They don't give you permission to use their victim's tragedy to rile up hate against anyone. Who said that was okay? And it's really sad. Like, and I'm not laughing. Like, when I make that laughing sound, it's more me in disbelief. Like, oh my God, can you believe this crap? I can't believe it. Yeah. So, but when you think, you know, that you can save everyone all the time, your family, take for instance, if someone in your family was a drug addict and you kept trying and trying and saying, I need you to stop taking drugs, please, and you literally lock them in a room to try and make them go cold turkey, and they manage to escape the room, and the first thing they do is find the drug dealer and accidental overdose on whatever they were taking. Now, you're going to feel guilt because you're going to feel like, I didn't do enough. I should have nailed the windows shut. How did they get out of the room? If only I could have kept them in the room and forced them to go cold turkey, maybe they would have got clean. Maybe they would still be here right now. Okay, so, but even if you got them to wean off it for a week or two, there's no guarantee that as soon as they left that house, that they wouldn't have gone and ended up in the same situation. It's so difficult, because I can understand completely why people would say it's my fault, because you want to save the people you love. But you have to understand they are a separate entity from you. They can go anywhere, anytime, make bad decisions and put themselves in danger, whether you want them to or not. And of course you wish you could have convinced them that this is dangerous, you shouldn't be with this person, they're going to hurt you, or don't take the drugs anymore, it's going to kill you. Like, of course it's natural to blame yourself and think that I could have done more, but you have to understand that the reality is it could have happened anytime, anywhere. We just don't have control over that. If they had, say if there was a relationship, your sister's with an abusive man who's really beating her up, and then you get her away from him, but then the next person could be the one who hurts her, or she could get in a car and end up in a car wreck, or she could go on holiday and something happens on the holiday. You know what I mean? It's like, obviously the circumstances are going to affect you individually in different ways, because obviously it's different if someone fell off their motorbike on holiday and just had a freak accident, and that's different compared to if someone physically took the life of your sister, if your sister's husband took her life, then obviously that is more traumatic, because you are angry that your relative suffered, you're angry that they didn't come to you for help. There's so many things that go through your mind that it's like more devastating because of the way they were taken. It's like, bad enough their life is lost, but it's the way it was taken adds to the trauma, adds to the pain, adds to your guilt, even though you're not responsible. But sadly, your brain, your human psychology, psychologically, your brain is going to say, I could have done more, it's my fault, when it's not your fault. And I know it's easier said than done to forgive yourself, but sometimes that is what we have to do. We have to be willing to forgive ourselves, even when our hearts are broken. Sometimes it's hard to forgive others, because I find it so hard to forgive people who have wronged me. But sometimes people find it hard to forgive themselves. I know there's a couple of incidents I knew of where a mother was told by her daughter that she was being abused by a family friend, and because they were so close to this family friend, they never wanted to believe the child. And then years later it came out that that person was doing it to multiple people's kids, and then they got locked away. Then that mother felt embarrassed and ashamed, and guilty, remorseful, but the daughter couldn't understand why the mother didn't believe her. The daughter couldn't get over the fact that the mother would rather give the abuser, the dangerous predator, the benefit of the doubt, even instead of believing her daughter. Why would you not? If you see it as taking a chance in being wrong, as if to say, oh, but what if I believed my child and she was lying? Well, wouldn't that be the better option, that you believed your child and okay, the lie came out, but you should always stick up for your child and protect your child, so when you think that oh, I'm going to, give the adult the benefit of the doubt because he seems nice, he seems normal, maybe she misunderstood something he said to her or did, that was really hard for me to understand, how a mother could not be there for a female child, for a male child. But that happens a lot. I've heard multiple stories and it shocks me. It really scared me to think that, wow, what is it about these mothers? Like, what is it in them that didn't make them have fierce protectiveness over their children? But then some of them, it comes out later that they were abused and they told their parent and they weren't believed. So that's even worse, because then you think, well, hold on a minute. You knew what that felt like. You knew that fear and that terror that the adults you relied on for your safety didn't believe you and allowed you to still be in the space with a predator, abuser for years, preying on you, abusing you, and you did that to your kid? Why would you do that? So it's really hard to understand why people would do such terrible things, repeat such terrible history, and yet they sort of cry, oh, I'm so sorry, I feel guilty, I feel remorseful. Well, what's the like, that just seems pointless, that your remorse and regret means nothing 30 years later when the person's been abused for multiple years and they can't get over it. Like, what kind of... So yeah, there's times where people just throw the word out there, oh, I feel guilty, oh, I feel remorseful, but really it's more they're embarrassed that people know their shortcomings. They're embarrassed that people know they're a piece of crap who didn't protect their kid, and because if I had kids, I'd be willing to die to protect those kids. Clearly there's people out there who don't care about their kids. It annoys me that people like that have plenty of kids, but then there's people out here who can't have kids and they would be the good parents, people out here who, just terrible people, just plopping out tons of kids, and they don't even want them, they don't even care about them, they don't care what happens to them. I mean, this world makes me sick. I hate this world. And I'm not laughing at the situation. Like, every time I laugh, like I said, it's part of the way I speak. It's like I laugh out of just exasperation, out of fed up energy, just like, oh God, it's too much, And it's like my brain tries to lighten the mood in my head, because it's like I'm feeling low energy because I'm talking about such sad situations, So I don't want anyone to think I'm ever laughing about abuse, because I'm not. But my brain makes me chuckle to bring my energy back up when I'm talking about something low. It's like, it's weird, but that's just my personality. I'm not laughing at any abuse. So yeah, it's just very, very painful. I have no, when people say I have no regrets, what a crock of, what a crock. Everyone has regrets. I think people who say they have no regrets have a lot more embarrassing skeletons in their closet, and they don't want to admit they have regrets. So it's like a grandiose defense mechanism to be like, no, I'm great, my life was great, I'm perfect, even when I made mistakes I was great. And I'm just like, what do you mean you're great and you had no mistakes and you had no regrets? Or if you do have mistakes, you're totally fine with them. Why are you fine with them? Why aren't you, not trying to shame people, but yes, you should feel ashamed if you've done something that you should be ashamed of. I mean, it's very strange to me how people can be so blasé about like terrible things they've done. You know, like I remember talking to some gang members in New Zealand, and even though this man was old, really old, like maybe in his 70s, and the way he would chuckle and talk about terrible things he did when he was like 20, 21, and he was part of these black motorcycle gangs, and I would just be like, ugh, how can you chuckle when you're talking about, you know, gang-arring people and just beating people up with baseball bats and just like, and I was like, God, it just shows the evil in you never left. It never left. Yet you're sitting with your grandkid on your knee. You don't even deserve a family, as far as I'm concerned. You don't deserve these, you know, innocent kids sitting here. Like, how are they safe? You know, like, it really disgusted me to think that you should have the biggest, you know, regrets of us all, and yet you're chuckling like, oh yeah, we used to beat up the rival gang. I mean, just, it really hurts me to see that human beings are just, some of them are trash, real trash. They never had any integrity or dignity or honor. They're just straight trash. I just can't even believe it. Like, because where are all the honourable people? Seriously, where are they? Because I know that if someone asked me to describe myself, I know I can say without being big-headed, without bragging, I am genuinely brave. I would put my life on the line to protect any innocent soul. I don't care what race you are, I will protect you. I will help the vulnerable. You know, even when I was at school, even small school, like primary school, which is age, 5 to 11 and a half, I used to help protect kids from bullies. And then at secondary school, which is like high school age, 12, like 11 and a half or 12, we start at high school in England, and we call it secondary school, and then we leave, do our like final exams, which we call GCSEs, and we do that kind of like 15 and a half, and then 16. So some kids, depending on what month of the year they're born, will be 16 when they leave, and some will be 15 and a half. But you can't start working in England before 16. If you do, it's kind of illegal. So you get a national insurance card, and that's like, I guess it's the equivalent of the American Social Security number. You need that number to work. It's like a ID number, and when you're 16 you can go and work but also study. But yeah, like when I think back to how many oh my god, I literally, it fell out my head what I was talking about. I was talking about the schools. Sorry, yeah. I was never a bully. I always stood up for other kids. I always went out of my way to protect other kids I saw being bullied. I remember this poor kid at my primary school. He was a boy, and he was being bullied by this fat, ugly pig of a boy. Such a nutcase. You could tell he had some kind of psychological problem, or, you know, like antisocial behavior problem. He was not normal. He was disgusting. And we kept saying, please tell the teacher, please tell your parents, this has to stop, or you have to fight back. You know, pick up a chair and hit him. Like, you know, you're letting him abuse you every day. It was like horrible to see him just, for the victim to be so weak. And then I remember one day the mother of the bully had to come in to pick something up from the school, and I asked her, excuse me, are you the mother of this boy? And she was like, yes. And I said, your son is evil, he's a bully, he keeps picking on this boy, can you tell him to stop? And I'm only like 10, and I'm telling off this woman, and she was looking at me like, what? My son's not a bully, my son's fine. And I went, no, your son is a bully, we all witness it. I've been trying to tell the teachers to do something. You're the mum. If you raised this monster, you should do something about the monster you raised. And then sadly, nothing was done. I don't know what the mum said to him, but it didn't help. If she even said anything, it didn't help. And then the poor kid was still being bullied. And it was just devastating to me, because I genuinely care about other people. And I just hated to see this kid being bullied and picked on for no reason other than the kid picking on him was evil. And I had no idea why the teachers weren't protecting him. I have no idea why he didn't tell his parents. I don't know. It was really sad. But when I, left school at, 15 and a half, 16, and I really had hope, I really had the hope that, okay, everything's going to be normal now. I'm free from that ridiculous, horrible situation of school. I'm going to go to, our college is like different to the American colleges. So what Americans call college is our equivalent of college is university, where you pay a lot of money to go and get a higher education for certain jobs. But usually, if people just go to a local college, it's what I guess Americans call a community college, where it's lower level qualifications for just basic jobs. And there are some higher educations, but it's not as expensive to pay for to get the qualification. Whereas university, you have to get loans, student loans, you have to be there for years studying. It's usually where like the law school level or the doctor medical school level or engineering, certain things you do, or computing, or certain things you do at university, it's like has to be a higher level and it costs a lot of money and takes people years to pay back the loans for university. But when I was studying, I just remember being so confused by the way that the other teenagers, were just so hell bent on just staying immature, staying, in this unintelligent, antisocial, bullying mindset. Like I thought, we all have to grow up now. We've all left school. We're 16. We're going to join the community college level. Or some people went to sixth form, which was also kind of like community college level, or did A levels or whatever it was. And I really was absolutely gobsmacked to see that no one grew up, that everyone was an idiot still. They were bullies, they were horrible, they were vile. The only thing that increased was the sexual activity, obviously, because now people are more out of their parents' home. They're going to college all day. They're wandering around the town, in groups of people they've met. And so it was like the grossness of just the casual sex and the not using protection and multiple people getting pregnant at 16, 17, 18. I mean, in England, it's embarrassing how there was an epidemic, I remember, of just very, very young girls getting pregnant, and it wasn't rape, and it was literally these young girls, for some weird reason, were overly sexualized and going with other kids, and they were both like 12. Like there was a story that a 12-year-old had a baby and the boy was 12 and she was 12. And it was disgusting and embarrassing, but it was happening a lot. There was a ton of like 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds, 14-year-olds, 13-year-olds having babies and their parents not, keeping them under control. It was like everyone was out of control. It was really embarrassing. And I didn't get pregnant whatsoever. And I didn't choose to have sexual activity until I was sort of 18. And I kind of regretted it because I felt peer pressured into it because everyone else had been doing it since they were 12 and 13. So then when they're coming across me and I'm saying I want to wait for marriage, they're like, what? Like looking at you like you're a freak or something, when really I wish I'd been strong enough at that time to say, no, you're the freaks for being so over the top, overly sexualized at such a young age. I feel sorry for you. I don't know what happened to you that made you feel like that was something you wanted to do at 12, 13, 14, 15. That's sad that you weren't more protective of yourself, or your parents weren't more protective of you. You didn't have no self-control. Like, what's wrong with you? But so there's there's many things that I remember that just, yeah, it's just when you think of how people in the world are just so negative, what is the reason? I really have, such a hard time, being in this world, being in this terrible, awful world. When you're an empath and a earth angel or a light worker and you're pure of heart and you're a good soul, it is so draining and it makes you have no hope. It's draining being here, it's draining seeing all the hate and the evil and the terrible things that are continuously going on in the world. It is really hard. You just don't want to be here because you think, I don't want to be part of this evil place, but you have to remain strong. I know that there's a purpose for us good people, even us just existing here on this earth plane to counter the evil. That is important in itself. That was made clear to me that just you being here, existing as a good soul, harming no one, doing good wherever you can, that is important. That brings balance to everything. It counters the evil, it chips away at the evil. So just keep shining your light, just helping those out of darkness, being kind to those who need it. And yeah, it is hard though, because sometimes you're so kind and you help so many people, but when you need help, there's no one there. The same people you help sometimes won't even be there for you. And that really hurts when you think that you've saved someone from homelessness, you gave them money, you didn't ask for it back, and then you need a tiny favour and they're just too selfish to give it. And then you get shocked and think, wow, I almost wish I didn't help you. And then you feel like you're not able to do your job as a good person, as a light worker, as an earth angel, because now you get resentful. In the human body, your human emotions overtake your spiritual emotions. So, we're a spiritual being of pure light and love, and then we get squashed into this meat puppet body, pushed down to earth, to learn these lessons that we've, chosen to come here and learn, no matter how brutal. And that is hard for me to understand, that we would choose such a brutal life to learn harsh lessons. But if you listen to my other videos, you will hear more information about that. And but yeah, like being pushed way down to the lowest vibration, and then being stuck here, forgetting, having our memory erased of our true home, the spirit plane, and not being able to remember why we chose this life or what we expected to achieve. Like, for instance, I think that I picked this life because I wanted to learn how to forgive massive betrayal. That's what I think. And the reason I think that is because I have been given so much betrayal from people close to me. It's insane. Like, every single person I got close to stabbed me in the back. My mother is the biggest opposition. I was helping my biggest enemy my whole life, which is my mother. I've been helping her, but because she's a sadistic, malignant narcissist, and she's got narcissistic personality disorder, that meant that she was compulsively trying to hurt me all the time. She was compelled to do this because of her condition. Even if she wanted to love me and care about me, she couldn't, because the condition wouldn't let her. And that was extremely painful. And I didn't want to admit it for many years, that she acts like she hates me. She acts like she's happy when I'm sad, and she's sad when I'm happy. Like, she's acting like she's jealous of me. Like, but I'm always sharing with her. If I get a job, I give her money, without, she never had to ask me for anything. I just kept giving and giving and giving and saving her, and she would always look past me and want to be more, loving to other people's kids, or loving to strangers, or super generous and loving to everyone except me. And it was so painful to watch, very, very hard to watch and go through. And be subjected to that. Because most people, all you want is for your family to love you and welcome you, and you want to know you're always welcome home. But now I know, I'm glad to know this is not our real home. This human experience, we're just a spiritual being having a human experience, and all these things down here don't matter really. Like when I think about it, I think, that person who was put down here to be my mum, it's not even my real mum. It's just a person. It's almost like the Matrix, you know what I mean? It's like these people are put here as pawns for you to experience this betrayal, I mean, something that's even hard for me to grasp, but I was told this from friends who had a near-death experience and had been told, why we come here to Earth and stuff like that, and why we would pick a life full of suffering, what was the point of it all? And basically they said that, well, if you pick a life that has severe suffering, you will evolve faster when you complete the tasks. So for instance, like I said, I think I picked, I need to experience severe betrayal in order to learn to forgive my, terrible betrayal. So sadly, I think I'm going to fail this test because I ain't forgiving no one. And I'm not they can kick rocks and I'll hit them with a rock. But it's really hard for me to forgive severe betrayal. I'm just like, hell no, why would I? But apparently, that's something I really feel at a soul level I was supposed to try to learn, because the amount of betrayal I've had, it was like it kept repeating so much to give me opportunities to forgive. And I just refused. It's like, no, I will not forgive. And even when I tried to pretend that, oh, okay, I forgive them today. Yeah, I'm going to tell them I forgive them. But then the person sort of laughed at your attempt to forgive them. Like, I don't care if you forgive me, I didn't even do anything wrong. Then you get angry and be like, I rescind the forgiveness, I still hate you. And so for me, I definitely feel at a soul level I was supposed to learn how to forgive severe betrayal somehow. I mean, I've got to the point where I can have a little bit more compassion. When I say for my abusers or enemy, I don't mean I let them off the hook, but when, in particular, sort of the people in my life who were narcissists, diagnosed narcissists who hurt me severely and betrayed me severely, the only thing I have compassion for in regard to them is the child they were that was abused, that forced them to become a narcissist. So I will have compassion for that little kid that was them, that forced them to become the monster they are now. But I don't have compassion for the monster they are now, no way. But that was something I didn't even consider before, that, well, they were, an abused child as well, and their mind couldn't handle the abuse because it was so bad, and their mind split, and then they became a narcissist, and they didn't want it, it's involuntary, it's, a psychological break in the mind, and they can't, control it. Just like how I have OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, in regards to germs. I hate germs. I'm germophobic. I want things straight and in a certain order. There's almost like a ritual I have to go through of how I want things to be done, how I want to brush my teeth in a certain way, and it doesn't change. I always have to do it in a certain way, have the things laid out a certain way, and if I can't get it that way, it makes me anxious, sort of thing. Now, I can't control that. As much as I want to control that, I cannot control that. So I know what that feels like, to be compelled to do something and not be able to control it, to be aware that I'm being compelled to behave a certain way, but not be able to control it, to dismiss it, to turn it off. So when I looked at it from that point of view, that, oh, okay, imagine if my OCD, my obsessive compulsive disorder, was narcissistic personality disorder, and I see myself going to do something cruel, but I can't stop myself, or there's something inside saying that I have to do this, and then, you know, some sick part of the disorder is giving me a pleasure, you know, feeling from doing this cruel thing, but I can't control it, you know. And so, you know, I have definitely tried my best to you know, look at things differently, and I think I am proud of myself that I was able to come to that, you know, conclusion that I will allow myself to have compassion for the child who was abused. You know, I didn't consider that part of them before. I only could see the monster they become, the monster that hurt me, the monster that argued me, the monster that beat me, the monster that laughed at my pain, that got pleasure from seeing the pain in my face. You know, I can push that thing aside, that monster, and remember there was a child that once existed who was severely abused, and that is what caused this monstrous condition to become them, sadly. But it is hard because sometimes you feel like the condition is them and they are the condition, so how can you separate them? But, you know, I was able to at least come to that point where I will have compassion for the child they were, that didn't deserve to be abused, just like I didn't deserve to be abused by them. And when I was a kid, I didn't deserve it. And I know what it feels like to be that kid, but, you know, because I was given immense strength, you know, to get through it, my mind didn't split. My mind was, you know, they couldn't break my spirit with their abuse. But sadly, not everyone's like me. Not everyone's been given that extra strength. And, you know, some people, like I've said in my other videos, you know, some people chose to do, you know, certain tests over multiple lifetimes. So, like reincarnation, they chose to come down to earth and have a milder life where there's a little bit of stress, a little bit of problems, but not severe. But then that would take them multiple lifetimes to keep coming back and learning, go back to the spirit world, come back and learn, you know. But then some people who have the more stronger spirit, the braver spirit, would say, I can handle this. Yes, I will take this mission, you know, and this will evolve me faster. I want to learn this faster. This is something I need to overcome. So, you know, the inability to forgive, I guess, is something that I definitely recognize, especially when I've seen past lives. I've seen 3 past lives. When one time a lady did a hypnosis regression, and that was really interesting because she did, you know, write down some things before I got there. So I think she had a bit of a psychic gift. Then she did the regression, and I told her what I saw, and it all made sense to me, and I think I'll talk about those past lives in a different video, actually describe what I saw and everything. But the fact that, you know, she opened the envelope after and said, read that. And then she'd written down stuff I was saying before I even got there. So it was really fascinating. And also, I regressed myself. I literally used a YouTube meditation thing where it was a past life meditation thing where you listen to the guided instructions, and I was able to connect with 2 more past lives using that, and that was really fascinating. And I saw people who were with me in this life, and, you know, it made sense why, that's why, you know, we couldn't work things out, or that's why I had this feeling towards them when I met them, and I didn't know them, but it felt like I knew them my whole life, or it felt like we were close and we had like a telepathy, you know, we knew what each other was thinking. We could just look at each other in the eye, and it was like I knew what they were talking with their eyes, the language of the eyes, or the telepathy was just there. You could almost hear their thoughts, or they could project, you know, their thought to you. And so, yeah, it's definitely something I noticed in the past lives that I didn't want to forgive. I blamed people. I forced them to feel guilty because I blamed them for their inability to do certain things, to maybe they weren't there for me, and I held that grudge. Sort of, even though when you go to the spirit world after you die here and then your spirit goes straight back to your true home, but it was almost like my spirit self was aware that, wow, the feeling that the human I was in had of the grudge and the hate and the inability to forgive. I want to go back and not cure that. What's the best term to say? I want to go back and learn that lesson, to be able to let go, to have radical acceptance, to forgive, to understand that not everything was how it seemed. Maybe not everything was that person's fault. Maybe it was just the circumstances, just placed everyone in those positions. And obviously, yes, if we do choose our life, then yes, those people were there to play their part. They could not avoid playing their part, and that is a thing that I really do find fascinating. Sometimes I find it hard to understand that, wow, we choose people we knew in the spirit world to come down here with us, like our soul group, and they will agree to be our enemies down here just so that we can learn the lesson. So they will agree to be, okay, I'll be the husband who hurt you, betrayed you. I'll be this abuser who attacked you in the street, or I'll be, this person who robbed you and stabbed you, or, it sounds crazy, and I still have trouble getting my head around it, even though I know it's all true. It's still hard for me to grasp. It's like, whoa, this is mental. Like, I don't, no disrespect, to the other side, but it just, in my human mind, I'm like, what is all this? Why are we doing this? Why are we just, going through all this pain? Why can't it be easier? Surely we can learn things without having to go through such brutality, but apparently not. Apparently it has to be brutal if you want to learn quickly. And I don't know, it's very, very hard. But yes, I'm going to say good night to everyone now. It's very late in the early hours of the morning here in London, and I'm really, really tired. My eyes are falling down, like my eyelids are falling down. So I just want to say God bless you, everyone. Thank you for listening to my video. If you got anything useful or positive from my videos, or if it made you think, or if it brightened your day, just do me a favor and click the like button and share and subscribe. And I wish everyone love, peace and protection. I hope that, everyone who's going through something will have the strength to keep going. Pray for strength, ask for strength, ask God and his good archangels to watch over you, to intervene in your life, to help you, because apparently, because I've been told that, they can't intervene because we have free will. You have to ask. You have to specifically ask in your prayers, I need you to intervene. I want you to intervene. I'm asking you to help me and intervene, So, yeah, so make sure, you're saying God's good archangels. You're not just asking anything out there. You make it clear you are asking only the ones of light and good and positive things. You don't just be willy-nilly calling in things, because there are bad things out there that can pose as good. So be spiritually aware, keep your energy safe. Don't ever use, dark magic or Ouija boards or nothing like that. Those things are bad and open portals that let bad things in. So you got to be super, super careful about what you do, in regards to like the spirit realm. So yeah, just always focus on the light and the good. And but that's all for now. I'm so tired. My voice is so low energy now. Sorry, but yes. So thank you, everyone. And that's it for now. Take care. Thanks. Bye for now. Hello, everyone. It's Brave here again. I'm just going to have a quick chat with you guys about what I think about plastic surgery and superficiality. Now, for me, growing up in London, there was a lot of competition between people feeling that they needed to wear certain brand name clothes, and if anyone wasn't wearing those brand name clothes, apparently they weren't worthy to be your friend, or they needed to have a certain backpack, like certain brands like Adidas and Nike, and Reebok was the sort of third choice, which is really silly because it's just like certain families might not have had the spare money to buy all these things. But I noticed that people would go into debt just to buy their kids these ridiculous brand name items just to fit in. So the parents weren't teaching the kids in the home that this is nonsense, we're not wasting money on the same pair of socks, but for a £20 pair of socks with a tick on it, when I can get 20 pairs of socks for that don't have a tick on it, And so for me, growing up, initially I think I bought into the nonsense of, oh my gosh, I have to ask my parents to get me this particular brand or I'm not going to be accepted in school. But that was very, very, at a very young age. I didn't feel that way when I got to perhaps high school age, over kind of 15. That's more like at the end of high school for British kids. So we go to school from 5 years old to 11 and a half, and that is called primary school. And then when we 11 and a half till 15 and a half, that's high school, but we call it secondary school. So once I got to 15, I was just like, this is so stupid. I don't care if I'm wearing the latest trainers. I just want to be comfortable. I don't care if I have a tick on my bag, an Adidas logo on my bag. I really don't care. And so I was extremely strong. But like I said before, I got to about 15, there were moments when people made you feel like all you needed to do to be accepted was wear these brand names and they'd accept you. And for me, coming from a family who were not loving and caring and made you feel like you weren't good enough and made you feel like you weren't welcome or loved, you wanted to be accepted somewhere. I mean, obviously, being accepted by your family is better than being accepted by idiots at school, but then you're looking for family elsewhere when you don't have it in the home, I suppose. And I think a lot of people who have joined gangs, when they leave gangs later on, years later, and they talk about it, they often mention the fact that they came from a dysfunctional family unit or no loving parents, or and it made them feel unwanted. So they looked for that human connection, even if it was in a negative space. But they actually described their gang as feeling more like family than their family, even though they were carrying out bad acts together. So for me, yeah, it was very strange, feeling like, why is it all these empty, silly, superficial things? Why are they so important? Why is it the person I am isn't what you want to get to know? Why would you accept me just because I put a hat on with the logo you think is good? Like, it was so stupid to me. From a young age, I always found it so weird that there was no human, like, sorry, the human beings didn't care about other human beings' character or how they behaved. They only cared about what they were wearing, and I found that so stupid. So to me, being a person of mixed heritage, I look different most people, like even other mixed people, I look different because I have more than 3 ethnicities in my mixed heritage family. So no one could tell where I was from. Everyone would always be like, "Where are you from? Who are your people?" Like, they couldn't tell. And then I would do a whole rundown of, well, my mum is this, my dad is that, my nan is this, my granddad's that. Like, there were lots of different explanations, trying to get people just to understand I have not just 2 heritages, I have multiple heritages, what do you call that? And it was always quite frustrating because people never seemed to want to accept me for just myself. And I found that so irritating. So I would always accept anyone as themselves. I never thought, oh, you're a different race, I can't be friends with you, or I don't think I have anything in common with you, just based on the fact that we're not from the same place. Or I just was like, if you're nice to me, I'm nice to you. If you're friendly, I'm friendly. It was always, I'll treat you how I want to be treated. So a couple of times the superficial aspect of things really just caused a fight, basically, because there would be people who they were insecure and they would then project onto you the thought that you think you're better than them because you have prettier hair. In their opinion, their hair is rough and not how they want it, and your hair is softer. So that seems to be something more in the Caribbean community or Black communities, this color, they call it colorism and featureism and texturism, which basically translates to the fact that the world had convinced people of color that unless you have more European looking features, then you're not worthy, you're not desirable, you're ugly, basically, if you don't look a certain way. And then obviously mixed people don't look fully European, but they don't look fully Black or African or whatever. And so people, in what I'd seen growing up in London, even though I'm born in London, but I was fully immersed in like the Jamaican community growing up, because even though I'm mixed and we have white, Scottish, Irish, Danish, all sorts of different stuff, we also have a bit of Indian and Jamaican. So we were mainly brought up around Jamaican community. And there was always this feeling of, you're not one of us, which I found ridiculous because there were other mixed people who were being accepted. So why was I not being accepted? So it depended who you were around. But at the same time, it was like there was this air of, they're jealous that you seem happy with yourself. I was never worried about anything about my body except, I think, because I was really tall for my age, people tried to make it a negative thing, like, oh my God, you're so big for a girl, you're big like a guy. And I was like, well, I'm tall, I'm not big. I'm tall and slim. So you'd have adults saying, oh wow, she's so tall and slim, she should be a model when she gets to 16 or 18. And they would compliment you. But then jealous weird teenagers would be like, oh, you're so tall. But then other people would be like, wow, you're so tall, that's good, you can get modeling jobs, you're tall and slim and you look unique, that's what you should do. And I used to say, well, no, I don't want to be a model, that sounds boring and frivolous and pointless. I want to help people. I want to get a job where I can actually do some good, help save people, And I used to always think I was going to become a nurse. But then when I did get to the age where I could join nursing college, I actually realised that I don't like blood and guts, and I don't like having to deal with, gory things like accidents and things where people are seriously hurt. And I thought, well, but I want to help people. Why am I feeling like this isn't a job for me? What else am I going to do to help people? And then when I got into, I came across psychology, and it was like it was like my second language. I was just like, wow, I already feel and know everything that they're describing in these psychology books. I've already got it, the understanding, the knowledge. I just didn't know what words to put on what I felt and knew already. So my empath gift gave me the ability to understand other human beings at a deep core level. So when I came across psychology, I was just like, oh, this is perfect for me. This is how I can help people. This is how I would be able to, help repair people from the inside out rather than just sew up their, their cuts and reset their broken legs, which won't heal their, psychological issues. So, yeah, getting back to the superficial thing, that was always a massive, massive thing in London, that strangers would laugh at other strangers and say, oh, look at what she's wearing, look at the state of him, look at her hair, look at this. And I used to think, why aren't you looking after your kids? Why don't you look at your kids and worry about them? Why don't you look at yourself and worry about you? Like, why are you worried about me or her? Or, I remember one time I had like a penny jar, which just is where you put all your small change, so your purse isn't full of like 2 pence. Or I guess in other countries, you'll have those little coins, and it's annoying because you don't need them all the time, so you put them in a jar, like a little penny jar, 50p jar, whatever, 50-cent jar. And then I remember I thought, oh, let me use them up. And so I would, if I was buying something that didn't cost a lot, I would use sometimes the little pennies if it was really small, the amount that I was paying. But then some stupid other teenagers were like, oh my God, she must be so poor, she's paying with pennies. And I remember looking at them and thinking, well, even if I was so poor that I had to pay with pennies, why are you laughing? What if I was so poor that I had to pay with pennies? What would be funny about that? So it was just so weird and so just, I couldn't believe it. I just thought, so if you saw someone who genuinely was struggling, your first thought is to laugh at them, ridicule them, mock them. That was what you felt in your heart was the right thing to do. And it just sickened me that these, young people had such cruel, evil hearts that it didn't occur to them that the thing to think of is to just be decent and kind, or just mind your own business. You know the old saying, if you have nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all. Why aren't they practicing that? And yeah, so growing up in London and seeing the callousness and the lowly behaviour of everyone around was really quite hard for me, because I was not like these people. I was not superficial. I knew how to dress nicely, but it wasn't overpriced clothes. It was, pick things that suited my body, that I liked, that were comfortable, that were stylish by my standards, not by anyone else's. So because I would pick things that were stylish by my standard, that I thought looked good in only my opinion, I didn't care if anyone else thought it looked good, then I always looked unique. So people would be jealous of the fact that I would wear outfits, put outfits together that they couldn't find, because I wasn't buying from the mainstream shops. I might go to, there was a place called Camden that's still popular now, Camden Town Market, and in North London, and I lived in South East London, so I had to travel a long way to get to this bit, which is closer to like central London, like the British Museum and stuff. It's not far from there, and it was like a great market where you could get alternative stuff, kind of gothy, unique stuff. And I used to sort of love black velvet, and have a long black velvet coat and just dress totally different to these silly people, all looking the same, all wearing the same boring brands, the same ugly tracksuits. Like, they never dressed smart, and I always had this elegant, unique style of like black lace and long kind of tunic but slim, just really cool looking. I always looked really cool, and people always were like jealous of that because I wasn't fitting in with them. But I still looked awesome. I just didn't follow their ugly, sheep trend where they're all sheep and they all copy each other. And so for me, it was just like, I wish I had the confidence back then that I have now. I was confident back then, but not as strong as I am now. Because obviously now as a grown-up, I've been through so much more. I've overcome so much more. And I really, truly do not care what anyone thinks. But back then, you didn't care what anyone thinks, but it kind of took a toll on you, having to always be aware of people's horribleness, aware of people's jealousy. It was exhausting. And sometimes you might, for a second, question yourself and say, is there something wrong with me why everyone seems to hate me all the time? Like, what am I doing that's attracting this? When really you weren't doing anything wrong. You were just being yourself, being a kind soul, and these nasty, negative, low vibrational idiots just could not handle the fact that you were happy in your own skin. And even on the days where you were struggling, you still helped others, and they know they wouldn't do that. They were jealous of the fact that you were a good soul, basically. It's almost like the darkness is drawn to the light and wants to snuff it out, basically. That's what it felt like. So for me, I always felt like, oh great, I have to always be ready to fight verbally, physically, because there were people who would literally be so jealous of you, especially in my community of the Caribbean community. You would be shocked how they would want to fight you physically just because you looked better than them. Like, they would literally want to, like, cut your hair off because your hair was longer than theirs or softer than theirs. Or, they would want to fight you so they could ruin your beauty, I guess. It was very strange. And I had to learn to fight really early. Like, by 10 years old, I had to be ready all the time because someone might jump you. A group of girls might jump you just because they were jealous of you. And it was really sad to see. And even when I got to about 16, I'd say, and I thought, well, I've left school, the high school section, and I thought, now I'm free to go to what we call the community college level, which is age 16 to 19, and it's free to 16 to 19-year-olds, any courses you do at certain colleges. So what we call in England a college is not we call a college, it's like not the higher education. It's like in America, I think you call college, I'm getting confused. In America, our university is called a college, and here in England, the university is like you have to pay a large amount of money to do the courses, but a college, you can pay a smaller fee and do the courses, or it's free between 16 and 19. Sorry, I was getting really confused then. It's really late at night here, but I just wanted to do one of these videos. So, sorry if I sound tired, my voice might sound a bit low energy. Right, so when I'm going to this 16 to 19-year-old set of courses at a college in Britain, I remember coming into contact with all these similar, superficial, boring, unintelligent, stupid other teenagers, but they're from other schools. So these are people not from my area. I've gone into a different area, so I'm commuting, I'm traveling, like 45 minutes on the bus to a different area, hoping to meet new people with new ideas and new attitudes, only to find the same kind of attitudes, the same kind of nasty, jealous girls and boys. And the weird thing with the boys was that they too were acting jealous of girls, which I thought was weird. But it was more just if you were happy in your own skin, they couldn't stand it because they weren't happy in theirs. They weren't allowed to be happy. They didn't allow themselves to be happy. They weren't strong enough to stand alone and say, I don't care what you think. I won't be part of your clique. I'd rather have no friends. I don't care, And I was really strong like that. I was like a lone wolf. I liked spending time by myself because I would read a lot and study a lot, and I enjoyed I enjoyed learning. I had a thirst for knowledge. I loved history. I could sit in the library and just read books alone and be happy. You know, be at the bus stop by myself listening to music, and that would make me happier than sitting in a room with people who didn't like me. You know, why am I trying to convince a bunch of idiots to like me? I don't even like you, so why do I care if you like me? You know, but that kind of thing, it shocked me that it didn't go away when you left school. I thought, well, we're 16, 17, 18, 19. Surely we've all got to grow up now. But no, that high school mentality moves with immature people all the way into adulthood. You can have 70-year-olds who act like high schoolers. It's pathetic, but true. And so even when I was doing, I think it was a Prince's Trust course, and it was like a 12-week development thing that it was meant to give you life skills and advice, and you go and volunteer in the community, help paint community centres and work with the kids and whatnot. And so I did one of those because it seemed to be the thing to do. It was free, and so I go on it, and there was a young guy, we're about the same age, 16 or 17, and I'm just sitting there and we're waiting for the class to begin. And he comes over. So he's born in Africa. He's got, you know, chocolate brown skin, good looking guy. I had no idea he felt any insecurity, well spoken, intelligent. And then out of the blue, he comes over to me and says, I wish I looked like you. And I was like, huh? And I was thinking, wait, is he someone who cross dresses or likes women's clothes? Because I'm thinking, I don't understand what you mean. I'm a woman, I'm wearing female clothes. What do you mean you wish you looked like me? I don't have any problem with anyone who cross dresses or the LGBTQ community. But at the time, I really was confused. So I was friendly and said, sorry, what do you mean? And then he was like, I wish I was light skinned like you. And I was so heartbroken when he said that. And I said, what? I said, please don't ever feel that way. I think you're beautiful and intelligent, and you know, my ancestors look like you, people in my family look like you, and we are proud. And I am so heartbroken that someone in this world, or people in, you know, on the TV or in your community, made you feel that you need to look like me. I was just so disgusted at the world and heartbroken for him that he couldn't even keep it inside. He had to come over to a stranger and admit this to me. And my heart broke for him. You know, the same way how Michael Jackson kept bleaching his skin, changing his nose. And even though he had the vitiligo, which does make patches on your skin, so if you're brown, it's going to create white patches on your skin where the melanin is reduced and disappearing. But he could have, you know, continued to use makeup to cover it. But then obviously if the vitiligo is making more of his body pale than brown, then I think there was some suggestion by his doctors that you might as well bleach off the brown bits. There's more white than brown. But then he should have come out and said, and been a spokesman for the condition and said, look, this is what vitiligo is. This is what I have. I have bleached off the last little brown patches just because I would look weirder, or I'd feel more insecure with all these patches everywhere. But for him to lie and say, no, I've never bleached my skin. Well, you have, because you bleached off the brown that was left. And you didn't tell anyone about it, which made people feel like you were not proud to be your race. And then also affecting, you know, yes, lots of people have nose jobs. Yes, lots of people are insecure about things on their body. But usually it's because the world has put some unhealthy, unachievable beauty standard that has forced them to feel they're not good enough. I, you know, like I said with Michael Jackson, he said, well, loads of people have had nose jobs. What's the big deal? Yes, that's very true. But if the reason you're having the nose job is you're hating yourself hating your race, it's not just my nose has got a bump in it, or I broke my nose and I need it reset. It's not those aren't the reasons you're getting it done. You're getting it done because of the systemic racism that has been going on so long, and it's literally from slavery. If you think about how slavery convinced the world that people of a black background are not good enough, and that's why it's okay to mistreat them in this atrocious way and to do so many awful, evil things to them, lying and saying they don't have a soul, they don't feel pain, they're animals, they're not human. How dare people do that to any human being? It's so awful and disgusting, and it makes me very angry to think that this has happened in the world, especially to some of my ancestors. It makes me so angry even now, but I can see how the negative stain of what was done back in slavery still touches the descendants of those people who were forced to be slaves. People now will still call people of color certain words that they know will hurt them because it's to do with their skin color, and they are aware that it will get to them because of the way the world has portrayed them in a bad way and put the beauty standard up that they're not good enough, their features aren't good enough. But then the joke is, and what I mean by the joke is, I mean the ridiculous thing is that you've got people who aren't from a black background or who aren't mixed with black, and they want the features, the bigger lips, the bigger bum, the bigger boobs, whatever. They want the features, but just they don't want to respect black people. So they will actually be like, oh, sorry, if you can hear a rumbling, that's actually my stomach. I'm actually really hungry, and it's just growling so loud. So sorry if the camera picked that up. It's really loud. So what was I saying? So when people who are not black will do their hair in hairstyles that are associated with African people, get lip fillers, get, cheekbone reconstruction or whatever, get things injected into their butt to make it larger, make their boobs bigger, tan their skin really dark, put on really dark makeup, and they're not that dark, and then you think, well, what's going on here? Why are there darker skinned people trying to be pale and paler skinned people trying to be dark? It's very confusing. It's like, why is no one happy to be themselves? Like, what kind of world do we live in where everyone has to be someone else to feel any modicum of happiness, and then they're still not happy? And that's how you know it's a psychological thing, because if it was just, hey, I need a bigger bum and then I'll be happy, it wouldn't be such a big deal. But it is a psychological thing. It's almost like a body dysmorphia. But if we could have cured the mind, there would be a lot less superficial triggers. I think if people were able to talk about their issues, get past their issues, feel accepted, feel strong in themselves, and happy in their own skin, it wouldn't be so bad. But because they are always made to feel like they're not good enough, there's so many things out there that reinforce this bad narrative of you have to look like these people to be accepted in the world, and it's just painful to see in the actual community, in the Caribbean community, in the Black community, Black American community, anyone who descends from Africans, even if you're a mixed community, like in Brazil, how majority of the people who are there are mixed with, they would have Portuguese and African descent from way back, but because it's like lots and lots and lots of mixed race people going back with mixed race people, having kids with other mixed people, they all kind of look mixed in their community. So people would say, I'm not black. The people there, because they're so mixed, they don't consider themselves black anymore if they look more on the pale side, because some people, when they're mixed and they have a child with another mixed person, they can pass for a different race. They can look more pale, more Portuguese, or more Spanish, or more European. And then if their hair is straighter or their eyes are green or blue, they would not want to claim that African ancestry, or they won't even say they're mixed. And why would you want to deny your ancestors? What's the reason? Well, it's the world telling you that your ancestors were nothing and nobody and not human. So a weak person would go around trying to deny that part of them because they have been convinced that there's something wrong with having that blood, with having that ancestry. Oh my gosh, my stomach's growling, sorry. I better go and have a cake or something. And then, so yeah, it's really, really painful for me to know that after centuries of slavery and things, that people, the descendants of the victims, the slaves, they should be strong and confident, and especially when in this day and age there are more opportunities for us. I'm not saying that there's not barriers, because there's a whole heap of people who would love to keep us down, you know, people of colour, even keep each other down, which is sickening and disgusting to see that people of colour will step on each other to be closer to the so-called people in power, the people they think are above them. They literally will put themselves below the people they consider above them, just because the people have a certain hair type or eye colour or skin colour is pale or whatever. And I'm not having a go at anyone who's not black. I'm mixed, so I accept everyone. This is just me talking about the facts and my experience. So I don't want anyone who's white or, you know, not black to feel like, oh, is she blaming us for the problems in the world? That's not true, because there's plenty of people out there who are white or not black, who are welcoming like me, who accept everyone, who don't have any racism in them, who are good people. So I just want to make that clear, okay? And but yeah, with the superficial narrative that is out there, just that people feel so insecure, so inferior. And when I look into it and look at, okay, why would, if all of us are from different parts of the world, you know, why do I, as someone in England who is mixed, why do I have to look like someone of a totally different race who's on the other side of the world, who I'm never going to meet? Like, why do I have to do that? Who said I have to do that? Now, if I was weak, I would follow magazines and say, oh, well, this magazine says I have to look like this to be worthy. But worthy to who? Who are these people in the magazine editing room? Why do I need to care what she or he thinks? Because isn't beauty in the eye of the beholder? So what he thinks is beautiful, the editor of the magazine or the woman who edits the photos, what they say is beautiful doesn't need to correspond to me, doesn't need to influence me if I have a brain of my own. You know, like, we're not the scarecrow. Sorry, we're not the scarecrow from the Wizard of Oz with no brain. We have a brain. We can look in the mirror and be happy if we choose to with ourselves. But for some weird reason, people seem to be very, very weak minded and just take any person's criticism as fact. I mean, feelings aren't facts. Even if someone feels you're ugly, that's not a fact. That's just some Dumbo's opinion. I mean, someone could go up to someone who's a supermodel, and if she's insecure, even though she's a supermodel, if someone says, you're looking fat, actually, you're not as pretty as everyone says. And if she's insecure, or obviously she's been made to think that her beauty is the only value she has. But if someone says, well, you're beautiful, but you're stupid, or you're beautiful, but you're not good enough, you know, you're only good for walking the runway and nothing else, you know, that would get to a person, because every human being wants to feel worthy. But then the trouble is, who are you looking to get the approval from? Like, you need to look at yourself and approve of yourself and be grateful that, you know, you have the strength in yourself. See, this is the thing. People are not grateful for, if you're in a healthy body and you don't have terrible disabilities and pains, and, because there are some people who are disabled and going through terrible pain, psychological or physical, and they're happier than the person who has everything going for them, good health, so-called good looks, money in the bank, it's so strange. That's why you realize how important it is to be strong of mind, to have the confidence. And I don't mean confidence in a superficial way, as in I'm better than you, I'm bragging, I'm so big-headed. I don't mean that kind of confidence. I mean genuine loving yourself, standing for something good, not following the crowd, not bullying others because they don't want to follow the stupid superficial stuff. And for me, it's like, I would rather, I know it sounds dramatic, this sounds really, really dramatic, but I would rather die than go along with nasty, evil people, bullying other people, conforming to this corrupt, disgusting, evil world. Like, who exactly are you trying to imitate? Because most of the world is corrupt and evil and soulless. So if you're a good soul, why do you want to look like them? Why do you want to behave like them? Like, there's so much that you could be doing that's better, and yet you choose to lower yourself, lower your vibration, go and do vile things, chop off pieces of yourself, add pieces to yourself. And you're still broken on the inside. You're still psychologically damaged because you're not fixing the thing that needs to be fixed, which is your mindset. Most people can't do it by themselves. Some strong people can soothe themselves, calm themselves, help themselves, get themselves through their trauma. But some people will need help. And that's when you reach out to, a counsellor or a psychiatrist or support groups. And there are some free ones out there, and it's not easy. I know some people find it hard to reach out and ask for help. They feel embarrassed to say, I'm overwhelmed, I'm struggling, I'm not happy with myself. They feel like for instance, I remember people who blatantly were jealous of me, not because I made them feel that way, but they would make it up in their head that I thought I was better than them, or I thought they were ugly, when I never said anything like that to them. I did nothing but encourage them, but they projected onto me the insecure voices in their head that told them, you're ugly, everyone thinks you're ugly, this girl isn't really your friend, she thinks you're ugly, she's just, laughing at you behind your back, which wasn't true. But this is the person's introjects in their head, the intrusive thoughts from either their depression or insecurity or whatever. And sadly, so many people who I was encouraging and helping, they were just hating me behind my back, and I thought we were friends, and I would have done anything to help them, but they could not get over their projection, their anger. They could not get over their own insecurity, so they projected onto me things they made up in their head about what they thought I was thinking. And like I said before in my videos, they hated in me what they lacked in themselves. So say if I'm, showing that I'm kind, I'm brave, I'm loyal, I'm helpful, I can make something out of nothing. I'll always get back up when people knock me down. I'll never bow my head. I'll always be strong. And if they didn't have those things, or they couldn't cultivate those things inside themselves, they would hate you for having those things. And they wouldn't consider how much pain you'd gone through, how hard it was to get back up after being knocked down and abused and beaten and and so many horrible things that have happened to me. So many times I felt like I can't go on, I'm going to, take myself out of here. And they don't consider how much I've been through, because all they cared about was, oh, I'm jealous of her because she's smiling today and she looks good today and her hair looks good today. Well, so what? I look good today, but I didn't look good at the time I was being beaten and had to run away from my family, or the time I was hard and tried to go to the police and they didn't believe me and help me. And you know what I mean? Like, it's so sad that at the times where I had the most trauma going on, I couldn't turn to anyone. I had to go through that by myself. I had to deal with all of that by myself. And these silly things they're worrying about, they haven't even had half of the terrible things happen to them that I have had happen to me. And so for me, it's like, why would you be jealous of me? Because even when I've told them these terrible things have happened to me, I say to them, do you really want to be me? Or you just want to look like me? Because if you wanted to be me, you would have to go through all that childhood trauma, being beaten by your mum from age 7 to 15, having to physically fight your dad off because he would come in and out of your life and try and attack you, having to call the police to have him removed from your house, you know, and like, you know, being hard, being, you know, being in relationships with narcissists where they abuse you, you know, psychologically, emotionally, physically. Like, do you really want to be me? Because if you really want to be me, you will also have to take on my psychological pain that I feel every single day, that I can't get rid of, that I can only reduce and cope with and try and move on, but it's always there. You know, sometimes I have flashbacks, sometimes I can't sleep, sometimes, you know, people say stuff and it triggers me, reminds me of the people from my past, you know, new people, totally new people, but they say something and don't realize they're triggering an old memory, a painful memory. And so when you say it to them, you would think they would be understanding, but they're so superficial. They're just like, no, I want to look like you. Oh, so you don't care that despite, like, even though I look like this, despite looking better than you apparently, but it still didn't save me from having a terrible life. So why are you not getting the point? Is it doesn't matter what you look like, you can still struggle. You know, so really you should just count yourself lucky you weren't me, because look what's happened to me. My beauty didn't save me from anything. It attracted more vultures than it kept away. If anything, I wish I looked plainer so people would not notice me and leave me alone. I mean, like, it's just very, very strange, and the world is very strange. And I just hope people will think more carefully about what matters, about the content of their character, about the people they want to be. If you, you know, died right now and someone had to read, you know, what do they call it, a eulogy at your funeral, what do you want it to say? Do you want them to lie and be like, yeah, she was great, she was kind, she was this, when you know you were none of that? It's so important to be a decent, normal human being. Stop being superficial, stop being cruel, stop being selfish, stop hating people for stupid reasons, like, oh, your hair's a bit longer than mine, oh, your skin's a bit lighter than mine. Focus on you. Stop focusing on other people and what they have, you know, their features, their body. People are so, oh God, it's just, I don't want to call people stupid. Sorry, I was going to say people are so stupid, but people are choosing to do stupid things and think stupid things and focus on empty, useless, unimportant things. And why is it so easy for people to go towards the negative when there's any, you know, situation in the world where there's negativity? It's shocking how many people will jump on the bandwagon. You know, like in the UK, we're having these race riots at the moment, and it should have been all the good people against the evil people. But instead, some idiot racist people took the opportunity to take this terrible tragedy and turn it into a race war thing when it's nothing to do with race. It's to do with a terrible, evil young man who did a terrible, evil thing. And all our hearts go out to the family of the victims, and we're so sorry for the loss of life of the victims. That's what the good people are worried about. How is the family coping? We're so sorry for your loss and the way it happened. What can we do to prevent knife crime and mentally ill people running around hurting people. What can be done? That's what the normal people are thinking about. The racist people see that and go, oh, since the guy who hurt these poor children and took their lives is a different race to them, let's make it about race, and then let's tar every person who looks similar to that person or is mixed with those people, tar them all with the same brush and say that they're monsters too, and kick them out of the country they're born in. I mean, how dare you? It's just so sick, because I've never hurt a soul in my life. You're not going to tell me to leave the country I'm born in because of what some other evil person did. How dare you? But that is the kind of evil thing that has happened, that people will use a terrible tragedy like this to fuel their own disgusting agenda, even though what are you doing in the community to keep people safe? You're not. You're actually going out there and being a violent person too. So how are you how are you on your high horse when you're going out there hurting innocent people? I mean, you're not doing it for the victims. You're doing it for your own racist agenda. You just needed the spark to light the dynamite to get all the other nutters to jump on the bandwagon. It's terrible. It's very upsetting. But I was really proud to see how many anti-racist people came out, and they outnumbered the racists way more. 10 to 1, and I was so proud to see that, there are good people left in the world, thank goodness, because I really hadn't seen any for a long time. And so I was thinking, oh my God, do I have to carry a weapon now? I've never felt that unsafe in my own country that I had to consider, should I carry a weapon, because now we have racist idiots trying to jump innocent people, men and women and children. How dare they? It's just disgusting. But I just pray that things will, calm down. But at the same time, you just don't know. People will erupt out of nowhere and do terrible things and then claim they're doing it in the name of so-and-so, when those people were not racist. So the victims who were sadly taken, if their families aren't racist, they're not condoning what you're doing. They don't want you using their relative's name as, the reason why you're burning down innocent people's homes. Why would they want that? Doesn't even make sense. It's good against evil. It needs to be all the good people sticking together and saying, how can we prevent, things like this happening again? Let's put safety measures in place. Let's make sure we have security at schools or at dance classes or anywhere where vulnerable people are. It's just really so sad, anyway, but my video's got a bit longer than I wanted. I'm very tired now, so I'm going to head off. But thank you everyone for listening. I hope everyone is okay, and I just hope God will protect you and keep you safe, and wherever you are in the world, I wish you peace and protection, love and light. And that's all from me tonight. And if you get anything good out of any of my videos on my channel, Unconquerable Soul 1111, if you ever feel that any of my videos brought you any comfort or brightened your day or made you think, please like and subscribe and share, and I would appreciate that. And like I said, God bless you all. Sorry, I'm so tired. That's why I'm slurring all my words. My eyes are closing as I'm talking. Yeah, so that's it, everyone. Good night, and bye for now.